So Ian, at Game on Expo, we did a panel.
We did.
Thanks for coming out. Just like 80 of you about. And we talked about Nintendo cracking down on emulation and ROM sites in particular. Love Retro and Love ROM.
It was a real good conversation.
It was a good conversation. But you know what? I don't remember it offhand. So we're gonna throw to it right now in Phoenix, where it's 30 degrees hotter. There was a lot of news that came out in the emulation front the last few days before we came here, over the past week and a half, about Nintendo is going after ROM sites now with like full Ian teeth and elbow mode. They're going right in at them, like not just cease and desist letters. We're talking like lawsuits. Like, oh, we're gonna file to come after you.
Pause. We jumped into the topic like quicker than we've ever jumped into a topic ever at a panel or a convention. I mean, I don't know.
It's the heat. It's getting to me.
We've got an hour to kill.
First of all, it's not kill because it makes it seem like we don't want to be here. We want to be here. Well, no. Never mind what Ian said. We do want to be here. It's not killing time.
But just watch. He's going to want to go to Q&A with 45 minutes left to go.
Yes. So what? What's the difference there?
People don't like asking us questions.
No, they do. Would you guys ask us questions if we have 45 minutes left?
Okay. All right.
I'll take a sure. That counts. That definitely counts. Fine. We won't talk about the topic. We'll just
No, we won't.
No, we won't.
Well, I mean, we're going to get there.
No, we're not going to get there. This is the podcast, by the way. This is what you've missed out on for 4.5 years.
We've been doing it for 5 years, and we're at that point.
Yeah, 7-year itch is coming soon.
Yep,
for us.
I think we might.
All right, so nothing's been happening with emulation.
No, it has. We're getting.
We
there,
just flew in from San Diego, and boy, are our arms tired.
They sure are. Tried the veal.
Did you see anything nice out there at the convention expo hall? Anything?
So, anyways, Nintendo's being a brat. Nintendo's being bratty. And because of this, MU Paradise, which is arguably one of the most important emulation sites in probably the past 18 years, is changing entirely how they're handling their website going forward. As of Wednesday, they've now pulled all of their ROMs and emulators to avoid any sort of legal backlash, mostly from Nintendo. But they decided to be as careful as possible, and they've removed everything.
So they weren't sued. Love Retro and Love ROM were straight up sued. Like, we're going to take your babies from you, sued.
To the tune of an insane amount of money. So this website, Love Retro, was one of those sites where you could play the games in the browser. There were over 100 games that you could play in the browser. They also had Nintendo art, box art, logos, everything all over the website, which is fairly brazen.
That's bold because most in the past, you go to a ROM site, you just get a list of ROMs, you download them. So they weren't usually using intellectual property, maybe on some screenshots. They wouldn't be like, oh, here's the history of the game and the box art and everything. So Nintendo probably said, okay, this is probably over the line for even us at this point. Maybe now this is the impetus for them to go after everyone. But at least that site's going to be dead. Like that's gone forever.
Yeah, most were lists of often broken hyperlinks with advertisements for porn and supplements on the side. But Nintendo is suing these sites to the tune of, I believe, $150,000 for each instance of a game that's a Nintendo property on the website, and $2 million for every instance of the trademark being on the websites. That's enough to ruin someone, obviously, forever. So many other sites are taking note of that and just ceasing to function.
Well, Cool ROM is another big one. That there used to be like 3 or 4 big sites, but now Cool ROM and Emu Paradise, which is not the animal, that'd be a different website.
Paradise. I don't want to know about Emu Paradise. That sounds highly questionable and suspect.
But those are the only 2 that have survived to this point from 20 years ago. There used to be all like some MAME sites where you can download the arcade ROMs and other ones. But Cool ROM just took off all their Nintendo not just Nintendo ROMs, every Nintendo console, there's no longer a link for it. So Game Boy's gone, NES, Super, N64, they're just gone. They're just being as safe as I possibly can, just doing that.
Right. So, MU Paradise will still do retro content, but that's about it. So apparently they're probably going to be news.
Microphone. Did you hear him? Okay, good.
You want me to curl? Is that
I don't know, just point.
I feel like you were trying to take an opportunity there to show off your biceps. So this topic is actually it's timely and good for here because Nintendo filed suit in Arizona.
Oh, is that where the Love ROM is located?
I guess so.
Oh,
so let's
all
hear
right.
it for Arizona. Cheap Pop? Yeah?
Is that where
Okay.
GoDaddy is?
All right, Cheap Pop.
Nintendo stormtroopers outside ready to bust in. Reggie's got his Negan bat.
So what really is a bummer about this is Nintendo's not always great about reissuing and re-releasing things, and they tend to go after these ROM sites the hardest. When you look at this in the scope of video game preservation, it's a fairly big blow. MU Paradise was where most people went, as it was a very comprehensive website in terms of the ROM collection. You could, it's a weird example, but you could find everything from the Beatmania PlayStation 2 games, which is where I used to go to get those, to the common stuff like your Super Mario 3, if you wanted to just play that and you didn't have it. There is, for an example, a good instance is Super Mario Sunshine. There's no real great way to play Super Mario Sunshine right now if you don't have a GameCube. They haven't announced a re-release of it, and if you want to play that, you either go pay for a used copy. None of that money is going to go to Nintendo. It's not supporting Nintendo. Or you emulate it. And it just seems, and now you can't do that even. It would behoove Nintendo to do what Sony and a lot of companies are doing now and kind of keep up on making sure that you have these games to play on their consoles. You are then preserving the game, and also you're making money off of these games that people want to play.
Let's back up a second.
Back up.
These sites shutting down doesn't mean these ROMs are not going to be available.
No, they're just not easily accessible.
Yes, I mean, you can go on torrents and download entire libraries of systems of games. So it's not like this is gone forever. It's not like you're going to be going on the street and a guy with an overcoat and asking for the hottest ROMs he has. Got that Sega Master System ROM? No, that's not going to happen. But it does make it tougher. It makes it seem like it's going to be in the fringe of the internet now, the dark web more, potentially. But if you really want to get at it, you're going to get at it. But the problem with clamping down on these sites is that the fact that it was so readily accessible made it so that retro gaming could be easily sustainable because it's more easily, like you said, readily available to find games that you would even stumble across by accident. And now that's going to be gone. So unless you make a concerted effort to find some of the stuff, it might be hard to reach those games that before you're like, okay, I would never have heard of Chubby Chair before unless I downloaded the NES ROM, for example. Very obscure games.
No one was worse off.
I like Chubby Chair. I reviewed it. But you see what I'm saying, though? I think that's really what the blow is to, and of course, preservation. All these ROMs are preserved; they're taken offline. There's tons of copies of these everywhere. So for preservation, I think that's almost a misnomer when it comes to the issue. I think preservation itself.
It's not the preservation, I guess that's the problem. It's the ready access to the preservation that's the larger problem.
It's also keeping the interest alive in the older games. Because like you said, in terms of even the older Nintendo games alone that are published, it's probably like not even half have been re-released in the past 10 years. When you go to the other systems though, now you're talking like third-party games, now you're talking probably 95% of those games haven't been re-released on all those various systems. And that's where it's more damaging long-term because while the ROMs will always be available, most people won't realize most of those games are out there. They won't be able to play them just because they didn't know where to search for them. And it's not about taking money away from these publishers because they're not re-releasing most of those games. And a lot of times the rights, no one knows the rights to some of these games. They've been resold or multiple people or entities own rights to certain games. So some of these games will never be re-released anyway in our lifetime. So it's a strange issue. And yes, copyright does run out in theory on these properties, but it's not going to be for a long, long time. So
There's also an image issue for Nintendo. It's this weird dichotomy, especially when you play it against Sony or especially Microsoft at the moment. So on one hand, you have Nintendo out there right now with, say, Smash Brothers looking great to the community. They're putting all this effort into it. They're basically giving fans everything they asked for and more. And then you have this going on at the same time, and it looks extraordinarily petty. They don't release these games. They don't, they go after these ROM sites. They don't do the remakes. They don't offer backwards compatibility. Their formats are constantly changing, et cetera, et cetera. You can't play your 3DS stuff or your DS stuff anymore. They used to be known for being backwards compatible and all that. Now you've got companies that build their brand on that. I mean, Microsoft has almost entirely built their brand on allowing for backwards compatibility. So you have preservation in terms of the ROMs, but people can easily access all of their old games. None of these games from, and I know it feels recent, but shit, this stuff is like 18 years old now, some of it. None of these games have left the public's eye. Their libraries are still relevant to a lot of people because of this. They have kind of tackled this problem head on, Sony as well, so that people don't forget even if they're charging for it, it's staying in the mind's eye, I guess. They have the libraries available, such as PS Now. You use that service and you have access to tons of PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 games, PlayStation 3 games. So whereas Nintendo is very, what's the word? Nintendo is very draconian, but stingy with releasing their old titles and keeping them held back. Even if it's a monetary thing, Microsoft and Sony is very good about keeping those available. Nintendo is not.
I don't know if this is the death of all emulation sites, just because when you look at the particular one, the one they went after, which was in-browser playing.
Paradise is not.
No, but they weren't hit up with a lawsuit in Paradise. They're just afraid of what's going on. So this love retro, love ROM thing, they're making it so that it's almost too easy by Nintendo's eyes. Where it's like, okay, you're not even searching out the emulators, you're not searching out the ROMs yourself and going through that rigmarole. Now it's just all there for you. And oh, by the way, we're going to have an on-demand service coming soon where you're going to pay a monthly service to play our games. And now this site's doing it for free, and you'll be able to do it on any iPhone, any tablet. And that's probably where Nintendo said that crossed the line for them. I can't speak for Nintendo corporate, but to me that was their bridge probably too far, and that might have given them now an excuse though to go after everyone else.
Sure.
They might say, okay, well, now let's just clean up everything, maybe. So maybe that's what it was. But I would say this cannot be divorced entirely from what's coming down the line with the Switch online service. It can't be.
Well, it seems like Nintendo does this every few years when they do gear up for something like the Virtual Console or this online service. There seems to be a pattern to them going after the ROM sites, because it's not. You're right. This isn't the first time they've done this.
No.
I like it when you use the word rigmarole.
You like that word, Ian?
I do. It makes me think of a pasta dish.
A pasta dish? Now I'm hungry.
Maybe I'm just hungry. I am
intermittent
hungry.
Fasting, damn it. It's tough.
I had 3 donut holes today.
What's the food of Phoenix? Is there a food of Phoenix or Arizona?
It's an orange dog.
A chimichanga, I heard? In-N-Out.
I'm from San Diego. Well, we're from San Diego. Plenty of In-N-Out.
So anything else to say on this? I think they might just dip their toe in the water, these sites like Cool ROM, and be like, okay, maybe we can do this in a couple years again. The heat's off.
Well, I mean, we'll see. This is, this lawsuit. Yes, they've done this in the past, but this lawsuit looks like it's going to be particularly damning if it goes through. And it scared people.
It's scaring them to the point where they have to.
Paradise's, response was, the guy who runs it, said this is scary. Basically said this is scary enough that I'm not going to jeopardize, my employees' future on this.
But and that's where I think in Nintendo's lawsuit, I think that's what really killed them to act. And what we talk about is when people are profiting, what they feel are profiting unfairly off of their stuff.
Sure.
So when you go to these websites,
And now it's great to have access to these ROMs. I've used these sites, so you guys probably use these sites, but there are a ton of ads on these sites. There's pop-up ads. There's always, well, you can donate to be able to download ROMs more quicker instead of waiting every 5 or 15 minutes. They're making coin, these websites. They absolutely are. It's not like they're doing this not for profit or just breaking even on these websites. So when you look at it from that stance, yeah, Nintendo has a little bit right to be pissed. And I'm not trying to, let Nintendo's, I think, going overboard a little bit here, but they have a point when it comes to these websites making a ton of money on this stuff. The same way the Scumbag Sellers of the Week are selling, all these ROMs, the same way. Now that's what I wish Nintendo would do. They really should be going on eBay, but people are directly making $50 per every SD card and going after eBay and saying, hey eBay, you're letting this happen. Maybe that's the next step. I can only wish.
Oh, I certainly wish they would go after that.
Because they have to know. They have to know about it. They had to have known that when we talked about the podcast 6 months ago, where they had a repro freaking category for repro labels and boxes, and that's just ridiculous.
I think that's the larger, definitely the worst abuse of emulation is loading up
selling the ROMs directly.
A silver Genesis shell with ROMs and. Yeah.
Oh, we covered that? The retro
I don't
Sigma,
remember what it was called, but yeah, that sort of shit. Especially when they get brazen enough to, do a Kickstarter for it.
Oh yeah, they love us when we talk about those ones. So that was 17 minutes, Ian. So not quite, it's like 15 minutes in. Anything else on this topic? Stretch this out a little bit?
We're good.
We're good?
We're good.
That's it. That's the podcast. We do 17 minutes at a time. No, we usually do 2 hours, sometimes 2.5, and Ian wants to strangle me at that point.
And we're back.
Ian, you were very succinct. You made some great points.
Thanks, you did too. I remember you making some real good.
About 5 minutes in, I was like, wow, Ian's smart right now. That's why he's on the podcast. That's why I thought.
And then Pat came around and hit people with the real knowledge.
Yes, sometimes, but it's a 1-2 punch to see you
Pow, yeah, just sorry you can.
Ian's a jab, I'm the right cross. That's how we work on the CU podcast.
So thanks for listening.